So this is it. We've made it to the last month of 2021. That means November has passed us by. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 7 November new releases that I saw from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the November new releases that you saw. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. And as we go into this, I know that I missed some pretty significant big releases that came out in November. It was a very busy month for me, and I just couldn't get everything watched that I wanted to see. But being that it was a busy month, it was also a great month for me and my channel. I hit 200,000 subscribers. Here I am! Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. And it was my best month view-wise since summer of 2019. Even better than December 2019 when Star Wars came out, and the best of the entire COVID era. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in, watching my content. It really does mean the world to me. And I turned 40 at a point in time in my life where things are pretty amazing. So I had a great November, and let's talk about the November movies that I saw. Speaking of things that are pretty great, in last place, Home Sweet Home Alone is certainly far from great. Now, when they first announced this, I wasn't nearly as cynical as most people who just assumed it was going to be utter garbage, and they were right. I thought it would be a generic, basically beat-by-beat remake that didn't have the magic, but at least it was harmless. Instead, what I got was this reimagining of Home Alone that makes the robbers sympathetic, puts them front and center, and then still tortures them in the third act of the movie.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
And all the changes they made basically ruin the entire film. It doesn't have the Christmas spirit about a family trying to get back together from the holidays after getting in a big fight at the beginning. No, it's about this couple's financial troubles and trying to keep their house. And then because the robbers are sympathetic characters, they're the people you actually care about, our little kid is way meaner, ruder, inappropriate than them. They're just stupid. And they do something that's not wise, but it's not full-blown evil either. They're just trying to get their own thing back that they thought was stolen. And for that, they're tortured by a child that sets a bunch of traps because of a misunderstanding.
You think I'm that stupid?
Yes, I do.
And so it just totally misunderstands what made the original film so fun, so heartwarming, why it was not just a fun slapstick movie, but a great Christmas movie because it has all those family themes. And so this was a total misfire for me. In 6th place, Eternals. I wish I could have this movie higher up on the list, but I simply didn't enjoy it either one of the 2 times that I watched it. It's maybe the most ambitious MCU film that they've put out to date. It breaks their usual formula and templates. It builds out the mythology of the world of the MCU. But also, it's a movie that has way too many characters, way too many plot lines, and way too many philosophical ideas that it's trying to explore. And it simply doesn't have enough runtime to tackle all of that. And it crumbles under its own ambitions.
Not impressed.
This is a perfect example of a movie that would have been much better as a TV show. Now that they're doing these Marvel Disney Plus shows, you can start comparing and contrasting which ones fit each format a little bit better. And because this tackled so many characters and so many ideas and built out the mythology so much, that's exactly what a TV show is for. You could dedicate each episode to each of these Eternals and playing catch up on 1 or 2 of them and building out this world, all building up to a big payoff. But when you cram it all into one movie, it feels like a sequel to a movie that we never saw, where it has to constantly both introduce us to characters while playing catch up to them. And because they broke up the storytelling and all these flashbacks and stuff, a bunch of it just didn't really work for me. And then beyond that, when you move into the third act, because it's trying to both deconstruct heroes, have complicated villains, and have sympathetic villains, and then have heroic moments while being a big MCU finale, it's trying to do all these things that kind of compete with one another and just led to this kind of convoluted morality and all these philosophical questions that, once again, drowned each other out. And so it just didn't work on any of the levels that was going for it. Aimed so high, it swung for the fences and struck out in the process. The swing looked great. Their ambition to point it at the fence, it looked very powerful, but it was a swing and a miss for me. Next up, Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City. Now, I went into this one with fairly modest expectations. I just needed a zombie movie. And when it came to the atmosphere and the tone and the vibe, I thought it was a big improvement over all of the past Resident Evil movies that we've gotten. It's an actual horror movie that sets up kind of this suspenseful vibe from the very beginning to the end of it. You always know that there's something around the corner that can jump out, that can attack someone. You slowly builds the tension to where you know they're moving towards a situation where they will be in serious danger, and when they get into danger, they're in over their heads and desperately trying to escape. All that sounds great. And it also is like a love letter to fans of the video games. I haven't really played the Resident Evil games, but you can just watch it and see all the references to stuff.
I understood that reference.
And that's basically the problem here, that it felt like I was on an in-joke. It was an in-joke that I wasn't in on. There's all this stuff happening. Characters are introduced and they say something that meant nothing to me because I haven't played the games, but they meant a lot to these other people that have played the games. And it just kind of like choppily cut between plot points and characters in a way there's just so much in there that while this environment, the atmosphere was suspenseful, the actual story and storytelling had no tension. It was just the environment that was scary, but the story kept cutting away from things. There's just utter lapses in the logic. There's one point in time where a helicopter crashes into one side of a mansion and people on the other side don't hear it. They didn't notice the building shake or the loud explosion. And so it's a movie that I dug the tone and the vibe. The actual storytelling and script didn't do it for me. In fourth place is Red Noticed, the most watched movie in the history of Netflix originals, defeating Bird Box and doing it in a fraction of the time. That is the power of star power. When you just drop it for free on Netflix, people will click on it to check it out, even if the movie itself, pretty middle of the road. Your enjoyment of this film is entirely dependent on your tolerance for generic adventures and star power. Like, if you need something new, you'll probably hate this movie. If you're fine with a generic adventure with a bunch of movie stars, you'll probably have fun with this movie. It has a bunch of big set pieces, 3 different movie stars just oozing with movie star charisma, doing their thing, having fun, traveling around the globe, driving fast cars in environments where it doesn't make sense to drive fast cars. But it's all about that. It's all about the star power, the glitz, the glam. And I like that sort of thing, so I had fun with it. I was totally fine with it. I'd be totally fine to watch it again. Do I remember much of what happened? Not really. I just remember that it borrowed every cliche from every adventure movie ever. It doesn't have a lot of logic to it. There's nothing about the script that made this the #1 most viewed movies in the history of Netflix originals. It is 100% because Netflix paid 3 movie stars a ton of money to star in a movie, and they just put them in a fun genre and put their faces on posters. People went, oh, look, a new movie from them? Click. And if that's good enough for you, you'll have fun with it. If you need more than that, which is reasonable, I'm pretty easy to entertain, so I was fine with it. If you need more than that, not a movie for you. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the November new releases that you saw. Also, let me know which of the November films that I missed that I should check out. I didn't forget about them. I wasn't able to see them because I was just too busy. And so let me know which ones I need to see. In third place, Tik Tik Boom. Now, this is a movie that was absolutely not on my radar until the press tour for it, where Andrew Garfield, who's the star of the movie, wanted to talk about his new musical. And instead, every reporter wanted to ask him about Spider-Man, which on the one hand, Spider-Man was definitely casting a very large shadow over Tik Tik Boom, but also all of those interviews got tuned into way more often because people wanted to know what he did and did not say. How did he deny being in Spider-Man in these individual interviews? And thus they got way more exposure because of Spider-Man in this other strange sense. So what did I think about the movie? And I went into it also having heard a bunch of people on the Twitter saying it was phenomenal. It's one of their favorite movies of the year. It's amazing. It blew their minds. So what did I think about Tik Tik Boom? First off, I'm not really into musicals. It's not my genre typically. If it doesn't involve, if it's not from Disney and features singing animals, it's not normally my kind of thing. Not that I hate them or anything like that, just not the thing that I naturally drift towards. So I thought it was good. It was a well-made musical with that certainly speaks to all the creatives out there, all the people that have that internal ambition to do something great. And you keep getting older and will I ever get there? Will I ever do something that really matters that people notice? And a lot of those things, those naturally resonate with me quite a bit. I've had success over the last few years with my YouTube channel, but I didn't start Sean Chandler Talks About until I was 34. And so I didn't get any traction on it until I was in the latter half of my 30s. And I started my first movie website back in the late 90s when I was a teenager. And so it took over 15 years before I had any success with any of my creative endeavors. I had blogs and bands and all kinds of things. And so a movie touches on some stuff that certainly I get emotionally where the character's coming from and everything like that. And so some of that hit really nicely. At the same time, there's some things about the lead character that made him a bit much, a bit difficult to swallow. He's kind of self-indulgent and self-important and goes into lecture mode at moments where he really shouldn't go into lecture mode. And some of that kind of, I think, softened how much I could enjoy the film because the lead character himself had ambitions that I could relate to, and that sense of the ticking clock as you get older and wondering, will you ever do anything? And then there's another side to it. It's like, oh, well, this guy, stop with all of this. What is wrong with this guy? So that kind of bugged me. And it's just in general, it's not really my kind of thing. So it's not one that I would, it's very unlikely a musical would be a movie that I would just gush over and it's in my top 10 of the year because it's just not my sort of thing. But a movie that I did enjoy. I'm glad that I watched it, and it definitely it resonated with me on several different levels. Our runner-up, Encanto, the latest Disney animation film. This one about a family where everybody gets basically a superpower except this one girl who didn't get a superpower, and it leads to kind of this mystery of where the magic comes from when they start to lose the magic. And it's also a musical, and so, musical being a recurring theme this month, and so very vibrant colors, lively characters. It's a lot of fun. And one of the things about this one that was interesting is that because of the house's magic, it leads to a situation where the house reminded me of Hogwarts, and thus the plot kind of reminded me of the first couple of Harry Potter books and movies about a young person exploring this magic place and discovering all these realms and the place that they live. So I thought that was kind of neat. I wish that the plot was as grand in size as all the world building about this family, because they give everyone magic powers. They give them this origin story and expand the world of where they live. And then the story itself is just about protecting the world and the house in which they live. And so it just felt like there was something bigger that they could have done with it that I wish they'd gone where it kind of they capped off the excitement level for me with the scope and size of the story they went with all of these lively, powerful characters. So I enjoyed it a good bit, but I could imagine that better version. But in first place for me, without question, was Ghostbusters Afterlife. And this is a movie that I just absolutely loved.
That's great!
I was extraordinarily excited for it. I'm a lifelong Ghostbusters fan. I don't remember when I first watched the original two Ghostbusters films. I just remember my entire childhood I was watching the Ghostbusters cartoon and knew the movies and was watching the movies. And then Sean Chandler Talks About my channel started when I reviewed Ghostbusters 2016. That's the origin of this channel that's become a whole new career for me. And it Ghostbusters made its way into that. So when they announced that the Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, the director of Ghostbusters 1 and 2, was going to be directing this film, I just thought, man, that's perfect. This is probably going to be a special film. I loved the trailers. I don't remember where it was in my most anticipated of this year as well as last year, but I'm sure it was very prominent. And it absolutely lived up to my expectations. That the cast was great. And especially it's one of these movies where you've got Finn Wolfhard. He's, of course, does his usual thing. He's a lot of fun. He wasn't the standout. Has Paul Rudd in it. But he wasn't the standout. He was just funny, charming. He was perfect for this franchise, fit in really nicely. He wasn't the standout. It was McKenna Grace, who just is able to be funny in this very dry Egon-esque way, while also being the heart of the movie, having all these dramatic scenes. And just in case you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to go into the too specifics, does some bold stuff in the third act. And I think it absolutely worked. I didn't cry when I first saw it because I went and saw it with my brother-in-law, and I'm not going to cry in front of my sister's husband. But things might have started watering up if I'd watched it the first time with just my wife. And it took my whole family, including the two oldest kids, to go see it once it hit theaters, and they loved it too. So that was just so much fun. It's like a movie that's funny, captures the energy, has all the nostalgia that you want, and it has a ton of heart in a way that Ghostbusters hasn't really had before.
Everyone that has seen it says that they cry at the movie, so it should be an extremely successful comedy.
It did everything I wanted it to do, and actually more so. So once again, it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, have got more like it, you can check out that video right over there. That's the video that YouTube thinks that you're gonna like. So I don't know what it is, but hopefully YouTube's right and you absolutely love their suggestion. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.